I finished the 3.3 MSQ in Final Fantasy XIV, DragonSong, and it was absolutely epic. But the reason that it was epic wasn't simply just because it was the end of a major story arc or it was just a really good fight. It was so much more. It was epic because it showed that a simple song can make a whole world of difference in storytelling. Here's why DragonSong is the unparalleled ending to Heavensward. As a note, there are heavy spoilers for both Heavensward as well as post-Heavensward MSQ here, so you have been warned. So I've been streaming Final Fantasy XIV here for about like half a year, like 6 months over on YouTube, live Mondays and Fridays at 9:15. And I finished up the MSQ for the main Heavensward a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was epic. That was an epic clash, you know, King Thornton, the song, the music, that was fantastic. And then we progressed into the DragonSong War, because at the end of the King Thornton fight, the end of the base Heavensward expansion, we find out that Estinian gets possessed by Nidhogg, one of the great dragons who we previously have killed, but because Estinian thought that he was finally going to be able to rest, that was an opening for Nidhogg to essentially possess him. And now he has both of his eyes. And remember though, Nidhogg is the dragon that's hellbent on destroying everything related to Ishgard because, well, the Ishgardians betrayed his sister and killed her, so he's just full of rage. Leading up to the final steps of faith, and let me just say that is absolutely one of the most epic, we'll say, story quest names I have heard in a very long time. The final steps of faith. Ooh, it legitimately feels like there is nothing that we can do to stop Nidhogg. Nidhogg is an angry shade of who he used to be, and now it's just fueled by rage and animosity towards the Ishgardians. Not only that, he is in possession of 2 great dragon eyes, which give him a whole load of power, and then, of course, he's possessed the Azure Dragoon in Estinian. That's a whole lot of bad all rolled into one. So now we have to go and basically plead to Nidhogg's brother, Race-Velgar, for help, because there's really, you know, it doesn't seem like there's anything that we can do. And this is the first time in this game that I truly felt like we were out of our league. I mean, we dealt with the Askians, we dealt with the Ultima Weapon, I mean, even King Thornton, like, there was all these different things that we were able to handle and go through, but I never felt like we were truly lost until this moment. Now we have this massive rage-induced dragon who is hellbent on destroying everything that we know here in Ishgard, at least, which I do not believe that he would have just stopped there, in my opinion. It felt just so much more worse. And what's really interesting is because, one, that we're about to pit a Great Worm versus a Great Worm, although Nidhogg seems a little bit stronger than Race-Velgar right now. However, it is the first time, at least that I can really think of, that the Warrior of Light has pleaded to anyone other than like maybe Mama Crystal and Hydaelyn for help. Like, this is a very interesting concept to me. It really kind of makes the situation feel almost desperate. Well, he agrees after his dragon dad says, yeah, you got to go help them. And we arrive at the final steps of faith, where the final DragonSong battle has already begun. Ishgardians are defending against this onslaught of dragons, and it seems kind of hopeless. And then, of course, Race-Velgar and Nidhogg start getting into it, and it's a clash against 2 giant dragons, and we're basically just sitting there watching all this happen. There's nothing that we can do. And it looks like Race-Velgar is about to lose, but then he just tosses his eye out like a beer pong ball, and we pick it up, and now our fight ensues, because now we are fighting Nidhogg as the Warrior of Light. Cue the DragonSong. Cue the somber and almost just sad music tied with this incredibly emotional and epic fight. Listen to this. Not only did this song add beautiful harmony to the chaos of this fight, but it meant something so much more. All throughout the Heavensward arc, we knew that we were going to have to deal with dragons. And of course, we dealt with Nidhogg at one point, but it almost felt like it was too easy. And when you actually take him down, it's odd because you almost feel bad for him. You almost feel bad for Nidhogg. Can you truly blame a brother for being upset that his sister has died at the hands of a betrayal from some random people that he didn't like anyway. I mean, it's hard pressed for us to sit there and believe it's like, oh, well, he's just truly a bad dragon or a bad moral compass. I mean, 1,000 years to them could very well feel like 2 days. So he's still very angry with what really felt like it was yesterday. However, all the Ishgardians, basically that was their ancestors, and they have no idea. They, the sins of the father, so to speak. And then there's something that is popped up and pressed in front of you, and it is the beautiful comparison of Estinian compared to Nidhogg. And despite them being quote-unquote mortal enemies, and the Azure Dragoon is going to take down Nidhogg, and Nidhogg's going to end the Ishgardian way of life, Estinian and Nidhogg are basically one and the same. They are both filled with vengeance. They are both out to seek the blood of the enemy because of what they have done to them. Estinian's family and his whole village were basically massacred by dragons. And essentially that was Estinian committing his whole life to fighting dragons, and especially hunting down the dragon that massacred his village, Nidhogg. Because if I remember correctly, Sir Albric fought off Nidhogg and he flew away, but he lost his Azure Dragoon power because he felt like he couldn't control it. And then the Dragon Brood essentially destroyed Estinian's village, and he wasn't able to protect the village because he let go of him becoming the Azure Dragoon. He did it because he thought he was going to be corrupted. And it's such a beautiful, subtle comparison, if you really look at it, that Estinian and Nidhogg are one and the same. It's like looking into a mirror. And they kind of highlight this shortly thereafter, finishing the fight, and talking about how Estinian was like, the only reason that I survived is because I had friends, I had people to lean on, whereas Nidhogg had no one, left alone with rage to consume him. It's a beautiful little subtle piece if you pay attention. It was so well done. The fight progresses in what you would call an epic fashion. All the while in the background, you hear the DragonSong talking about Raisfelgar and Shiva and how they came together to form this peace, and how the peace was broken, and all these other little subtle things, all while the chaos of this fight is ensuing. And it's strange because a brighter future is there. It is going to need to be presented in front of all of Ishgardians with the death of Nidhogg. One more dragon has to die, or the shade of one more dragon has to die. And it's weird because you almost don't feel like the hero here. Like, you kind of understand. You can understand why Nidhogg is angry. You can understand, and rightfully so, like, show comparison. It's like, I would be pissed off too. I would not be happy. And it's hard for you to fight Nidhogg in that regard, because it's like, he's just expressing this emotion of betrayal and anger and hatred. So much so that you don't feel like the hero taking down someone who's just retaliating from you murdering his family. It's a really, really interesting concept. The story here is peak. Absolutely. Well, we see a few transitions of Nidhogg. He becomes Estinian, but with like dragon wings, and then he becomes a flaming Nidhogg, and the fight is just absolutely incredible. Mechanically speaking, I had a great time. And then we see the end where Nidhogg is essentially Estinian again, and he's struggling to stand up on his own feet. So Estinian is reaching outward and fighting the dragon from the inside. Alfie and the Warrior of Light run over to go ahead and remove the eyes, therefore hopefully removing the corruption from Estinian's armor, and it's too much. We can't pull out the eyes because it's just too much power. In walks the spirit vestige, or spirit visage, of Isale and Harchenfon. And Harchenfon helps us, Isale helps Alfie pull these eyes off, and it is just such a culmination of emotion and music, because those two were the essential martyrs for the DragonSong War. Like, of course, Isale makes more sense as far as a martyr because she fought so hard to end the war with her heretic shenanigans. But then even with that, if you're looking at like Harchenfon basically needed to uncover the corruption within Ishgard. So both of them played their part, and they both died for this cause. And it's like a perfect culmination right up to that point. And once we remove the eyes, we chuck them into the chasm, and they walk away, and it's just, it's such a perfect ending in nearly every regard. The music, the combat, the story arc finishing, wrapping up. The somber feeling after such a difficult, long trek makes it so much more epic because it is very reminiscent of the Bloody Blanket. You don't feel like the hero. You don't feel like the hero. It is a very gray area because of what you had to do and all the people that you lost. It's a half victory, so to speak. It was just absolutely incredible. Now, of course, I have already gone through the vault. Obviously, if I'm here, then I've gone through the vault, and that was painfully good. And you can see that video here. Otherwise, stay caffeinated, folks.